The New York Islanders keep finding ways to win. That's 6 in a row after a shutout win over the Flyers. We'll talk about the keys to this winning streak, and we'll preview this weekend's 2 games in Florida. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Gil Martin. I have been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers. Great to have you here as we talk a little Islanders hockey. And wow, 6 wins in a row for the New York Islanders. And obviously this is their longest winning streak of the year. And it's even sweeter when you beat a division rival like the Philadelphia Flyers on the road and you shut them out. The Islanders took care of business and did everything they needed to do in this game. Let's start with what is one of the biggest differences that we've seen. The Islanders entered the third period with a 2-0 lead. In the past, let's say in the first half of the season, maybe it's a 50-50 chance that the Islanders get that win in regulation. How many times did we see this team go into a shell and collapse and turn the puck over and spend 60, 90 seconds at a time in their own zone, unable to clear the puck? We saw that all the time in the first half of the season. Here is, in my mind, the key stat from last night's win over the Philadelphia Flyers. The Islanders are up 2-0 after 2 periods. How many shots on goal did the desperate Philadelphia Flyers get in the third? 3. 3 shots on goal for the Philadelphia Flyers, down 2-0 in a desperation game for both teams, and the Islanders were able to shut the Flyers down, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. Yes, Ilya Sorokin is in the zone. He was playing the angles well. He made some big saves, especially in the first 2 periods. Give Sorokin a lot of credit for the way he played this game. And then we saw so many of the things we really, really wanted to see. Another beautiful goal by Simon Holmstrom, a wrist shot that he ripped. Another, dare I say it, goal scorer's goal for Simon Holmstrom. And this kid, I'm telling you, the talent is there. He needs the confidence, and it's growing with each passing day. And Holmstrom now has 13 goals on the year. And guess who got an assist on the Holmstrom goal? Scott Perunovich. 2 assists in 2 games as an Islander. And again, very small sample size. But the Islanders get the job done. We saw Marc Gatcomb get his first career NHL goal. A 25-year-old rookie who hadn't played in the NHL at all until this year, who had been languishing in the minor leagues and now finally got his chance. To see him get that first NHL goal was a thing of beauty. You had to love the look on his face and the look on his teammates' face. This was a magic moment. That made it 2-0 Islanders late in the second. And then finally, Kyle Palmieri getting off the schneid, ending a 14-game goalless drought by finishing out the scoring and clinching the win midway through the third. And then, as I said, the Islanders just shut the Flyers down. And it was beautiful to watch this team play this kind of a hockey game. You just haven't seen it. If I would have told you going into this game that Anders Lee would have 0 shots on goal and the Islanders would win, it wouldn't have happened too often this year because Lee has carried the offense for long stretches. And, what we didn't see were too many situations where the Flyers kept the puck in the Islanders zone for long periods of time. The penalty kill got the job done, including killing off a double minor by Adam Pelech for high sticking that the Islanders allowed 1 shot on goal in a 4-minute power play. They keep killing penalties effectively. And why? They are doing 2 things really well on the PK over the last 7 or 8 games. Number one, they are not chasing the puck. They are being, I'm not going to say passive, but they're not chasing the puck. They're backing in and staying in position and staying in, the diamond or the box and getting in the passing lanes when they have to, but they're not running around and getting out of position. And that keeps things on the perimeter. And that means that your goalie can see the puck. Makes a big difference. And yeah, the Islanders have only given up, 1 power play goal in their last 23 or 24 chances, but they're still in last place in the NHL on the PK. That tells you how bad a start they got off to. But all of a sudden, they seem to be clicking and doing the right thing. And again, these little things are adding up for the New York Islanders. They are all of a sudden getting the job done in a way that maybe we didn't expect. And I think, and this is something we're going to discuss in our second segment, but I think some of the injuries that this team suffered and the changes that the Islanders were forced to make are in many ways responsible for the fact that this team is on a 6-game winning streak. And again, if you look at the shot chart for the game, yeah, the Flyers had maybe 6 or 7 high danger chances, but so many more shots were from outside, from the point, from the top of the circle, not the bottom of the circle, not between the face-off dots. And when they did have those high danger chances, we saw Ilya Sorokin get the job done. So you just got to like what you're seeing from this hockey team right now. They are playing cohesively. They're playing complementary hockey. And unfortunately, we haven't seen them do that in a very long time. And now you look at the standings, and the Islanders have passed the Flyers and passed the Rangers in the standings. They're a point ahead of the Flyers with 3 games in hand, and they're a point ahead of the Rangers, even up in games. This has been a much-needed winning streak. And let's be honest. Too often in the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen this team play inconsistent hockey, and then they'll go on a winning streak or a 7-1-2 kind of a run, and then they'll turn it around and go 0-5-1 after that. I do not expect that the Islanders are going to win all 32 of their remaining games. But if you can play 600 hockey, get 60% or more of your points for the rest of the year, you increase your chances big time of possibly squeaking into the playoffs. It is still tough. There are so many teams. Like we've seen, the Islanders go on a winning streak, and all of a sudden they go from 15th place in the conference to just outside a wild card spot. You go on a 3 or 4 game losing streak, you could just as quickly fall back to 12th, 13th, 14th in the conference. It is that tight. And consistency, the one thing we haven't seen from this team all year, is going to be the key for this team to stay in the playoff hunt and possibly squeeze into the postseason. We have got so much more to get to on today's show. We'll have our hero and go to the game, and we'll talk about some reasons for this 6-game winning streak, including some of the changes that this team was forced to make that got them to this point. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a goaltender who was with the Islanders in the mid to late 90s from Sweden. Let's see if you can guess who that is. This is a pretty easy one. We've got all that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. Well, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an NFL playoff game. Browsing through the deals was simple, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal was especially impressive, offering the best value for the event, and the app's features like seat views before you buy and all-in pricing with no surprise fees at checkout made the experience smooth and reliable. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the reasons for this 6-game winning streak. And if I, again, would have told you 6 games before this streak started, 7 games ago, that all these injuries would have hit. Noah Dobson out. Ryan Pollock out. Marcus Hogberg out. I would have gotten some really good odds that this winning streak would not have happened. And if you look at the way that Lou Lamoriello handled the situation and some of the moves he made over the last few weeks, as much as I will be the first one to criticize Lou for the way he's handled this roster, big picture, one of the things he has excelled at, not just this year, but last year as well, is finding guys in unorthodox ways to fill needs. Whether it was bringing in Mike Riley last year, whether it was signing Maxim Siplikov or Tony DeAngelo, who both last played in the KHL, or acquiring Scott Perunovich now, bringing up Marc Gatcomb. All of these things really helped this team. And you know what? Perunovich and DeAngelo are better in their own zone than Noah Dobson. Less giveaways, less mistakes, less positional errors where, how many times we saw Dobson not pick up his man or not fight for positioning in front of the goal or just be in no man's land. We're not seeing that with Perunovich and DeAngelo. And that is almost like a big help because this team, again, every day, as you know, we've talked about this. They're not built to score 5-6 goals a game. You've got to win 3-1, 3-2, 2-1. You're not winning by outrunning and outgunning the teams, the opponents. So those two guys have solidified the defense and helped the transition game. All of a sudden, going from defense to offense, when you got guys who can skate the puck out, it's a lot lower risk and smarter. Marc Gatcomb has added physicality again to the fourth line that it was lacking. And then when Siplikov came back off his 3-game suspension, putting him on the fourth line now gives the fourth line some goal scoring and offense. It was Siplikov to McLean to Gatcomb for that goal. And that was really a thing of beauty. So you got to like what you're seeing from this team, and some of the fill-ins and the moves that were made have really helped this team. And look, there are still some guys who need to get going. It was great to see Palmieri end the slump. We need to get Anthony Duclair back into his full form. There is no doubt he's playing hurt. And hopefully, he will find his game as he gets healthier. Isaiah George, by the way, and we didn't do, and we'll do it now, hero and GOAT of the game. Hero of the game, I'm going to give it a tie. I go Sorokin for the shutout, and I go Gatcomb for his first NHL goal. So they're going to share the hero of the game. Go to the game, unfortunately. I hate to do this because I really like the kid, but it's got to be Isaiah George. Isaiah George only played 4 minutes and 3 seconds in this game, and then Patrick Waugh sat him. And, he may be hitting a little bit of a wall at this point. We'll see whether they go to Chalowski and rest George for a game. Let him watch a little bit and maybe get his bearings again. We've seen him sit out once or twice already. Let's see if it happens again over the weekend when there are 2 games. But overall, this is the kind of hockey that this team needs to play. And the moves that were made and the injuries, I think in the long run, or at least, in the short run, helped this team play better hockey. And they are really getting it done. One other thing from this game that I did want to touch on. Kudos to Maxim Siplikov, because we knew, and I talked about, every dayers will remember, I talked about this when the incident happened. But, Siplikov, the Flyers were going after him for the paling hit, the first Flyers-Islanders matchup. He didn't drop the gloves. It kind of got a little messy. Well, this time, Siplikov, just less than 5 minutes into the game, he drops the gloves with Scott Lawton. Lawton probably won the fight. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a bloody, messy bout. It wasn't too long. It was more wrestling than fighting, although both guys did land a couple of punches. But, Siplikov stood up for himself. He answered the challenge, and now this incident is behind this team. So, credit to Maxim Siplikov. I know fighting is not his game. It's not his thing. But in the NHL, and now a lot less than it was 20, 30 years ago, but you still occasionally have to stick up for yourself. And to his credit, Siplikov did that, took care of business, and got the job done. And that helped this team. And again, Gatcomb, 5 hits, tied with J.G. Pageau for the team lead. Tony DeAngelo and Alexander Romanov, each with 5 blocked shots, and Casey Cizikas blocked 5 shots. These are the little things that win hockey games. And instead of making sloppy plays, all of a sudden, the Islanders are doing the little things that win hockey games. And as a result, we're seeing 6 straight wins. Now, one last thing before we talk about this weekend's important games. Ilya Sorokin's playing really, really well. You have a back-to-back this weekend. Please, Patrick Waugh. I know it's a little risky, but Jakub Skarek has got to start one of these two games. You have two back-to-backs before Four Nations. One this weekend and one on the 7th and 8th of February. You have got to start Skarek in at least one of those four games, maybe two. I know you got, 10 days off after February 8th. That's the last game before Four Nations. But yes, Sorokin is playing well right now, but you can't wear him down. Whether Hogberg or Varlamov comes back, or whether Skarek plays well or poorly, you cannot ride Sorokin so much that he loses and tires. He loses his edge, gets tired, and plays poorly down the stretch. We saw it happen last season. He has to be paced. So I don't know whether you play Skarek in the first or the second game this weekend, but he should play in one of them. We are going to preview both of this weekend's games, plus we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from our hosts, Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, two games this weekend, and it's going to start Saturday against the Tampa Bay Lightning down in Tampa. 7 o'clock Eastern time start. And, the Lightning are coming off a 3-0 win over the LA Kings. That ended a 2-game losing streak, but, they've won 2 of their last 4. They're a top 10 team in goals scored and a top 10 team in goals against. 4th in goals scored, 9th in goals against, 5th on the power play, 10th on the PK. You still got Andrei Vasilevsky in goal for this team. And, he just got that shutout win over the LA Kings. So Vasilevsky is good. And you still got Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point. You've got a very talented roster here. Cannot take the Lightning lightly. And obviously, Tampa Bay just a little bit ahead of the Islanders right now. So if you can win in regulation, that's great. The line combinations for the Bolts, Braden Point, Jake Gunsel, and Nikita Kucherov are the top trio, and that is one dangerous top line. Anthony Cirelli centers Brendan Hagel and Connor Geekie on the second line. Then it's Nick Paul, Zemgus Girgensons, and Gage Concalves on the third line. And it's Luke Glendening, Mitchell Chaffee, and Cam Atkinson on the fourth line. Victor Hedman and Darren Radish are the top pair. Ryan McDonough, Eric Cernak are the second pair. And Declan Carlisle and Nick Perbix are the third pair on defense. Vasilevsky and Tompkins are your goalie. J.J. Moser is on IR. Then Sunday, it's the Islanders and the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions. That's a 6 o'clock Eastern time start, so make a note of that. No conflict with any NFL games, if that is something that has you concerned. The Panthers right now coming off their 3-0 win also over the LA Kings. And they will play the Blackhawks on Saturday afternoon. So both teams will be in a back-to-back. The Panthers 30-19-3, 7th in the league in goals scored, 16th in goals against. The power play is 8th, the penalty kill 15th. And the line combinations for Florida. Alexander Barkov, Carter Verhaeghe, and Sam Reinhart, a very good top line. Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk, and Maki Samoskevich are the second line. Anton Lundell, Eetu Losterainen, and Evan Rodriguez on the third line. And then Tomas Nosek, AJ Greer, and Jesper Boqvist are the fourth trio. Gustav Forsling and Aaron Ekblad, always dangerous, as the top pair. Nico Mikkola and Dmitry Kulikov are the second pair. And on the third pair, it's Uvis Balinskis and Nate Schmidt. The goalies, as I mentioned, are Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight. And right now, Jonah Gadjevich is listed as day-to-day. If the Islanders can get 3 points this weekend or more, that is really what we want to see. And it will not be easy. These are two quality opponents. It is on the road. It is a back-to-back. I personally, if given the choice, would probably go with Sorokin against Florida on Sunday and go with Skarek on Saturday against Tampa Bay. But let's see how Patrick Waugh decides to play it. Also interested in seeing whether or not Isaiah George sits for a game or continues to play. And just really, really, for the first time all year, and I have to say this, watching Islanders hockey is fun again. It's fun again. And for most of this season so far, it's been a lot more frustrating than fun. Let's hope they can play well consistently and keep this fun level going. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and Saturday will be the 54th birthday of former Islanders netminder Tommy Salo, the Swedish native, drafted in the 5th round, 118th overall by the Islanders back in 1993. Came over for the 94-95 season and played his first 6 NHL games. Stuck with the Islanders through the 98-99 season, then played for Edmonton and Colorado before returning to Sweden. You know, he played in the Swedish Elite League before the NHL and after the NHL. A very talented goalie who played for some very mediocre at best Islanders teams and just did not have a lot of support in front of him. And, you know, when I think of goalies during the Fisherman jersey era, I think of Tommy Salo. One of his better games as an Islander, how about March 2nd, 1997? Islanders visiting our nation's capital to face the Washington Capitals. And in goal, obviously, Tommy Salo for the Islanders. Olaf Kolzig, the goalie, in between the pipes for Washington. And after a scoreless first period, the Islanders go on the power play. Craig Berube is off for roughing, and Marty McGuinness scores what proves to be the game winner for the Islanders. Brian Smolinski, Ziggy Palffy, the assist. Claude Lapointe scores later in the second, and that's all she wrote. Islanders beat the Capitals by a score of 2-0, but in this game, the Islanders were outshot 39-19. That's better than 2-1, but Tommy Salo, a 39-save shutout to earn the win. So Tommy Salo, a pretty good goalie on some pretty bad Islanders teams in the mid to late 90s. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We will be back on Monday, and we'll have our key takeaways from both of this weekend's games against the Lightning and the Panthers. So make sure you join us for that as we get closer to the Four Nations break. We're kind of in the home stretch of that. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs. NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the games. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.